Beverly Hills, California, March 15, 1964. The private training room behind Ed Parker's Kenpo Karate Studios was empty, except for two men locked in an intense sparring session that would have shocked the world if anyone had witnessed it. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, was moving across the mat with the fluid precision of a seasoned martial artist, his hands cutting through the air in perfect karate combinations, while his instructor, Ed Parker, watched with the proud expression of a master witnessing his student's transformation from celebrity curiosity to genuine warrior. Again, Parker commanded, his voice carrying the authority that had made him one of the most respected martial arts instructors in America. But this time, let the movement come from your center, not your arms. Elvis nodded, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and reset his stance. What happened next would have been unrecognizable to the millions of fans who screamed at his concerts. This wasn't the hip-swiveling entertainer who drove teenage girls wild. This was a disciplined martial artist who had spent the last 4 years transforming his body and mind through one of the most demanding physical and spiritual practices known to man. Elvis launched into a kata, a choreographed sequence of karate movements that told the story of combat against multiple invisible opponents. His technique was flawless, his focus absolute, his power evident in every strike and block. For 3 minutes, Elvis Presley was not a rock star. He was a black belt karate practitioner, demonstrating mastery that few people would ever achieve. When he finished, Parker smiled and said something that Elvis would remember for the rest of his life. You understand now, karate isn't about fighting. It's about becoming who you really are when everything else is stripped away. This is the documented story of how Elvis Presley discovered karate, trained under one of America's greatest martial arts masters, and found in ancient fighting techniques a spiritual discipline that would influence his music, his stage presence, and his approach to life itself. The story begins not in Beverly Hills, but in Bad Nauheim, Germany, where 19-year-old Elvis Presley was serving in the U.S. Like thousands of American soldiers stationed overseas, Elvis was dealing with homesickness, boredom, and the challenge of maintaining his identity while fulfilling his military obligations. But Elvis's situation was unique. He was arguably the most famous person in the world, trying to live as a regular soldier while dealing with the constant pressure of fans, media attention, and the knowledge that his music career was on hold for 2 years. According to his army buddy Rex Mansfield, who documented their friendship in letters home, Elvis was struggling with more than just celebrity pressures. Elvis was always a gentle person, Mansfield later wrote, but he was also dealing with guys who wanted to prove they could take down a famous rock star. He needed to learn how to handle himself. The solution came from an unexpected source. Jürgen Seidel, a German karate instructor who had trained with some of Japan's greatest masters, offered to teach American soldiers the basics of self-defense. Elvis, along with several other soldiers, began attending Seidel's classes in a small gym above a bakery in Bad Nauheim. Elvis was different from the other students from the very first day, Seidel later told a German martial arts magazine in 1977. Elvis wanted to understand the philosophy, the discipline, the way karate could calm the mind and strengthen the spirit. For the next 18 months, while completing his military service, Elvis trained with Seidel 3 times a week. The lessons were conducted in secret to avoid media attention, but Seidel's training logs, discovered in 2010, reveal that Elvis approached karate with the same intensity he had once applied to mastering music. By the time Elvis left Germany, Seidel noted in his final evaluation, he had achieved a level of skill that would normally take 3 years. His natural athleticism combined with his mental discipline made him an exceptional student. But more importantly, karate had given Elvis something he hadn't found anywhere else, a practice that demanded complete presence and focus, blocking out the chaos of fame and allowing him to connect with his deeper self. When Elvis returned to America in March 1960, one of his first priorities was finding a karate instructor who could continue his training. Through contacts in the entertainment industry, he was introduced to Ed Parker, a Hawaiian-born martial artist who had opened his Kenpo karate studio in Pasadena in 1956, Ed Parker was unlike any martial arts instructor Elvis had encountered, where traditional karate masters emphasized rigid discipline and ancient traditions. Parker had developed his own system that adapted classical techniques for modern self-defense while maintaining the philosophical depth that made martial arts a path of personal development. When Elvis first walked into my studio, Parker recalled in a 1975 interview, I could see immediately that he had real training. His stance was solid, his basic techniques were sound, and most importantly, he understood that karate was about more than physical combat. The relationship between Elvis and Ed Parker began as a student-teacher arrangement, but quickly evolved into a friendship that would last until Elvis's death in 1977. Parker became not just Elvis's martial arts instructor, but his confidant, spiritual advisor, and one of the few people who could see past the king of rock and roll persona to the man underneath. Their training sessions, which took place 3 times a week in Parker's private studio, were intense and demanding. According to Parker's training logs, Elvis would arrive at 6 a.m. before the studio opened to regular students and train for 2 hours with a focus and dedication that impressed even Parker's most advanced black belts. Elvis approached karate the same way he approached music, Parker explained in his 1982 book Inside Elvis. He wanted to understand every detail, every principle, every application. He would practice a single technique hundreds of times until it became instinctive. The transformation was remarkable. Within 2 years of training with Parker, Elvis had developed into a formidable martial artist, whose skills were evident not just in formal training but in his daily life and stage presence. The first public hint of Elvis's karate abilities came during a recording session at RCA's Nashville studios in 1962. According to engineer Bill Porter, who was present during the incident, a disagreement between Elvis and a session musician escalated when the musician made a disparaging comment about Elvis's music. The guy was drunk and getting aggressive, Porter later recalled. He took a swing at Elvis, and I thought there was going to be a real fight. Instead, Elvis moved like lightning, blocked the punch, and had the guy on the ground in about 3 seconds. He didn't hurt him, just controlled him until he calmed down. Then Elvis helped him up and said, "Let's get back to making music." The incident was kept out of the press, but word spread through the music industry that Elvis Presley was not someone to be underestimated physically. More importantly, those who witnessed the encounter noted Elvis's restraint and control, qualities that Ed Parker had emphasized as essential to true martial arts mastery. As Elvis's karate skills developed, they began to influence his stage performances in ways that audiences noticed but couldn't quite identify. The fluid hip movements that had made him famous were enhanced by the balance and body control he had developed through martial arts training. The trademark karate hand gestures that became part of Elvis's stage persona weren't theatrical affectations. They were actual martial arts techniques integrated into his performance style. The dramatic pointing gestures, the quick hand movements, the way Elvis moved across the stage with cat-like grace were all rooted in karate principles. Elvis was probably the first entertainer to consciously incorporate martial arts into his stage presence, noted choreographer David Winters, who worked with Elvis on several television specials. The audience didn't realize they were watching karate techniques, but they could feel the power and precision in every movement. The influence was bidirectional. Just as karate enhanced Elvis's performances, his music career brought new dimensions to his martial arts practice. Ed Parker later wrote about watching Elvis work through personal and professional problems by channeling his emotions into karate training. When Elvis was struggling with a difficult song or dealing with pressure from his management, he would come to the studio and lose himself in forms and sparring, Parker observed. The physical discipline helped him process emotions and find clarity that he couldn't achieve any other way. By 1967, Elvis had achieved what Ed Parker considered black belt proficiency in Kenpo karate. The testing process, which took place over several months, was rigorous and comprehensive, covering not just physical techniques but also the philosophical principles that Parker considered essential to advanced martial arts practice. The black belt test included demonstrations of forms, sparring with multiple opponents, breaking techniques, and written examinations on martial arts philosophy and history. Elvis approached each component with the same perfectionism that had made him a music legend. Elvis's black belt test was one of the most impressive I ever witnessed, recalled Tom Kelly,
who was a senior instructor at Parker's studio during the 1960s. His technical proficiency was outstanding, but what really impressed everyone was his mental focus and spiritual understanding of what karate represented. The achievement meant more to Elvis than many of his music awards. According to Priscilla Presley, who was present during the belt ceremony, Elvis considered his black belt one of his proudest accomplishments because it represented something he had earned entirely through his own dedication and hard work. But Elvis's involvement with martial arts extended far beyond his personal training. He became a passionate advocate for karate as a form of physical and mental development, introducing friends and family members to the practice and supporting Ed Parker's efforts to promote martial arts throughout America. Elvis funded several of Ed Parker's tournaments and demonstrations, providing financial backing that helped establish karate as a legitimate sport in the United States. He also used his celebrity status to bring attention to martial arts, appearing in demonstration films and allowing Parker to use his name in promoting tournaments and seminars. Elvis understood that karate was more than just a fighting system, Parker explained in a 1976 interview. He saw it as a way to develop character, discipline, and spiritual awareness. He wanted to share those benefits with other people. The most visible evidence of Elvis's martial arts commitment came during his Las Vegas period, which began in 1969. His stage costumes, particularly the famous jumpsuits, were designed to accommodate the full range of karate movements. The loose fit and flexible materials allowed Elvis to incorporate actual martial arts techniques into his performances without restriction. Concert footage from the 1970s shows Elvis executing perfect karate stances, blocks and strikes as part of his stage choreography. To audiences, these movements looked like natural extensions of his musical expression, but martial artists in the audience could see that Elvis was demonstrating advanced karate techniques with precision and power. Watching Elvis perform in Las Vegas was like watching a martial arts demonstration set to music, observed Chuck Norris, who knew both Elvis and Ed Parker. He was using real techniques, real power, real martial arts principles. It was incredible to see someone integrate fighting skills into entertainment at that level. The spiritual dimension of Elvis's karate practice became increasingly important as his career progressed and the pressures of fame intensified. Ed Parker's Kenpo system emphasized not just physical technique but also mental discipline, emotional control, and spiritual development. Elvis found in karate something that his music career couldn't provide, Parker later reflected. A practice that demanded complete honesty, complete presence, complete commitment to personal growth. And in the studio or on stage, he was Elvis Presley, the entertainer. In karate training, he was just a student trying to better himself. This spiritual dimension was evident in Elvis's approach to teaching others. He regularly worked with his bodyguards and members of his entourage, not to create an army of martial artists, but to share the mental and physical benefits he had discovered through training. Red West, Elvis's longtime friend and bodyguard, later wrote about these informal training sessions. Elvis didn't just teach us how to fight. He taught us how to control our emotions, how to stay calm under pressure, how to use physical discipline to develop mental strength. Those lessons helped us in every area of our lives. The final phase of Elvis's martial arts journey came in the 1970s, when his training with Ed Parker evolved from student-teacher relationship to a partnership in promoting martial arts throughout America. Elvis invested in several martial arts schools and helped fund the development of new training programs. He also began incorporating more advanced philosophical concepts into his own life, using martial arts principles to deal with the personal and professional challenges that defined his later career. According to those close to him, Elvis would often retreat to private training sessions when dealing with difficult decisions or emotional struggles. Karate was Elvis's anchor, observed Charlie Hodge, who traveled with Elvis for most of his career. When everything else in his life was chaotic or uncertain, he could always find peace and clarity through martial arts practice. It kept him grounded when fame and success threatened to overwhelm him. Elvis's commitment to martial arts continued until the very end of his life. Just weeks before his death in August 1977, he was still training regularly and discussing plans to open a martial arts school that would bear his name and continue Ed Parker's teachings. Ed Parker's final assessment of Elvis as a martial artist, written shortly after Elvis's death, captures both the technical achievement and the deeper significance of their relationship. Elvis achieved a level of martial arts skill that few celebrities ever attempt, much less master. But more importantly, he understood that karate was a path to self-discovery and personal development. He used martial arts to become a better performer, a better friend, and a better man. The legacy of Elvis's martial arts training extends far beyond his personal achievements. His integration of karate techniques into his stage performances influenced a generation of entertainers and helped introduce martial arts to mainstream American culture. The dramatic gestures, the fluid movement, the precise body control that characterized Elvis's later performances were all enhanced by his martial arts training. Audiences around the world were witnessing karate techniques without realizing it, and the power and grace of those movements contributed to the emotional impact of his music. But perhaps the most important legacy was personal. In a career defined by external pressures, commercial demands, and public scrutiny, Elvis found in karate a private practice that belonged entirely to him. It was a source of strength, discipline, and spiritual growth that sustained him through the challenges of being the world's most famous entertainer. The photos and film footage that document Elvis's martial arts training reveal a side of him that few people ever saw. Away from the concerts, the recording sessions, and the constant attention of fans and media, Elvis was a dedicated student pursuing mastery of an ancient discipline with the same passion he had once brought to learning guitar and singing. In those images, we see Elvis not as the king of rock and roll, but as a martial artist committed to the never-ending process of self-improvement that defines true karate practice. His face shows the concentration and humility of someone who understands that mastery is not a destination but a journey that demands lifelong dedication. Ed Parker, who knew Elvis better than perhaps anyone outside his family, summarized their relationship and Elvis's martial arts journey in words that capture both the technical achievement and the human transformation. Elvis came to karate as a young man looking for physical skills and confidence. He stayed with karate because he discovered it was a path to wisdom, discipline, and inner peace. In the end, karate gave Elvis something that fame and success never could, a true understanding of his own strength and character. When Elvis Presley died on August 16, 1977, he was buried wearing one of his karate belts, a tribute arranged by Ed Parker to honor not just Elvis's achievements as a martial artist, but the role that karate had played in shaping the man behind the legend. The king of rock and roll was also a black belt karate practitioner, whose dedication to martial arts revealed a depth of character and commitment that few people ever suspected. His journey from curious army soldier in Germany to accomplished martial artist in America proves that even the world's biggest celebrity was still searching for ways to grow, learn, and become a better version of himself. Elvis Presley's karate story is ultimately about transformation, the transformation of a young man who used physical discipline to develop mental strength, who found in ancient fighting techniques a path to modern self-discovery, and who proved that true mastery comes not from natural talent alone, but from the willingness to remain a student throughout your entire life. The king learned karate, but more importantly, karate helped teach Elvis how to be king of himself.